Great show today. We have a Ohio State Buckeye presence coming on. We're going to talk about Wisconsin, Ohio State this year. Does Wisconsin have a chance? And it was I off base in Ryan Day's coach rankings when I said he might not be the best coach in the Big Ten. All that and more in today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this one of your first listens every day as we continue just to drive to build the community, get more voices on. Really appreciate everyone listening. We're going to bring in Lavisse Smith today, get an Ohio State perspective on the Locked On Badgers podcast. Lavisse, man, what's going on?
Oh, hey, Ryan, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I really appreciate it. So I noticed on a couple of my videos, I had this really sharp commenter. Lavisse was talking about Ohio State and some of the battles we've had. And I was like, I got to get this dude on the show. So I'm really grateful that you're here, man, to give us some perspective from another side.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
So I want to jump in right here. I want to talk the first Big Ten game this year. It's a big one. Wisconsin's going to be going to Ohio State. You know, I did a show previously that was almost a why can't we ever beat Ohio State show. Talk to me a little bit about Ohio State this year in a nutshell. Is the defense going to be better? Is the offense going to be as unstoppable as people think it is?
Well, I think from Jim Knowles' background in his previous positions as a defensive coordinator, I think he is a good coordinator. The question is going to be, will he be able to adjust to the power run games that he'll come up against in the Big Ten, which I hope he does. And will they be healthy? They had a lot of injuries last year, but I think from what I've seen and from what I've heard, they seem to be really healthy. Mick has got them in the weight room, knocking off some of that old Michigan rust. But I think they'll be ready for the Badgers when the Badgers come to town, because that's going to be a physical game. Actually, I believe that's going to be the first real test of a run game and see how he makes adjustments to that, because, you know, you guys are going to run on first down, second, third, and if he goes for it, he's going to run on fourth down. So, you know, they're going to have to be ready for that.
Do you think, and I want to phrase this the right way, but when an Ohio State fan, and you've been a fan since the Woody Hayes days, when you see Wisconsin coming up on the schedule, coming into Columbus, is that a challenging game in your mind, or are you at the point where Wisconsin maybe isn't on that same level?
Well, you know, being an ex-player in sports, you never take any competitor for granted. And Wisconsin has been too consistent from a physical standpoint to ever take for granted. I believe you guys are basically a quarterback away from being the team that you need to be to make it to the Final Four. Your defense is always solid. Jim Leonard, in my opinion, is one of the best D coordinators in the country. He just has his guys lined up correctly. They execute correctly. You know, when your offense is kicking with your run game, it's good. But I think you're just a quarterback away.
So let me ask you this then. If Wisconsin comes in, they get solid quarterback play, they come into Columbus, because that's going to be a night game as well. I think it was announced ABC is going to have the game. It's going to be a night game. Ohio State's offense this year, we talked about the defense. You think it'll be a little better. Jim Knowles coming in. That offense is going to be incredibly loaded. Is there any weaknesses there that you can see from the offensive side for the Buckeyes this year?
Well, I think if there's any weakness, it's just the newness of the line. They haven't really – the people are switching positions. Paris Johnson, who's been touted as this first-round draft choice ever since he graduated from high school, he struggled last year in his guard position. The offensive line struggled with their run game. They couldn't run the ball last year. So if they are not able to run the ball this year, there's going to be a lot of grumbling from Buckeye fans, because although everybody likes the pass, But in the Big Ten, you've got to be able to run the ball. And if you're going to win a championship, you have to be able to run the ball. So, they could – hopefully they don't have any more games like Nebraska where, Nebraska took them down to the wire. And, I think Wisconsin is probably the first game that is on the schedule that could have that potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an early season Big Ten tilt I think it's going to tell you a lot about both programs. The Buckeyes rush defense, the Wisconsin offense. Do you think coming off last year, right, where Michigan finally got over the hump against Ohio State, did that provide a little bit of more fuel in the offseason for the Buckeyes, do you think? Is that something that's going to carry over into this year? Is it a bit of a revenge tour?
Well, I don't like using the term revenge tour.
Yeah.
What I like to term it as is getting back to the basics. And the basics are playing physical, playing smart, and being tougher than the guy you face. I don't think this was the stature of the Buckeyes last year. They struggled against Penn State, which is always a tough game. They didn't play the Badgers last year, which would have been a tough game. They struggled against Nebraska. And then, people can get upset about what the offensive coordinator for the team up north said about them being soft, but he was correct. When you pass the ball that much and you can't run the ball, no matter where you are, they call that being soft.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they exhibited last year. So hopefully they can run the ball this year.
What's it like having, as a Wisconsin fan, I'm a little jealous, having like this steady stream of quarterbacks coming through Columbus that are all at least above average? Where does CJ Stroud kind of fit into that Buckeye hierarchy? Like, is he near the top of it, in the middle of it? Where do you think he's at?
Well, I don't like judging athletes because I know it's difficult.
Sure.
No matter where you fall in the spectrum of performance to perform at that high level. I mean, you think about what he did against Utah. That was a remarkable game. Mm-hmm. He's throwing dimes in that game. Now, in terms of the spectrum of Dwayne Haskins to Justin Fields to CJ, I think he's a better passer than Justin was, in my opinion. Not the athlete that Justin was. I compare him more favorably to Dwayne as a passer. Mm-hmm. And I think they're both kind of the same. They didn't want to run the ball. So, and in college, people think that's what you should do is, as a quarterback, run the ball. We had JT for,
I love JT Barrett,
like a lifetime. Oh, he's a winner.
So low-key, I just recently went back and watched some JT Barrett against Wisconsin because I was doing research for a show, and he would just rip the heart out of defenses. 4th and 1. I was watching the 2017 Big Ten championship game, and I don't know if you remember that one. If Wisconsin wins that, Wisconsin goes to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And there was a late in that game, there was a 4th and 1. Of course, Urban Meyer went for it. And, of course, he gave it to JT Barrett. And, of course, the play was blown up. And, of course, JT Barrett somehow still he broke it outside, cut inside 3 defenders. I mean, he was a heart ripper. Like, he just ripped out your heart.
He was a man.
Yeah.
He was a man. And I wish that Ryan Day could have got a hold of him for 2 years, mm-hmm. because I think he would have made him a better passer. Now, but see, I would have liked to have seen Ryan Day with Cardale Jones. I heard your comment about being beaten by a third-string quarterback.
Listen, he was. He was.
But he was 12 gauge.
I know.
When you're 6'5" and 250, I mean, he was that's a big boy. And when you can throw the pill like he did, you guys would do great with the third-string quarterback like that.
Agreed. Listen, we would take the third-string quarterback off Ohio State just about any year. Like you look at that depth chart, there's 5 stars spilling off the grocery wagon, right? Like it's ridiculous.
Yes.
Let me end this segment on here because next I want to get into some of the Ryan Day talk that you and I have had kind of offline. If you, I don't think this is going to happen, even as a Wisconsin fan, but let's say Wisconsin beats Ohio State in Columbus week 4.
I'm gonna have a terrible week.
You're going to come back on the show if that happens, by the way. What would be the recipe for that? Outside of like a weird 5 turnover game, like would it just be as simple as Ohio State can't stop the rushing game?
No, I think it would take a little bit more than that because they can pass the ball so well. You know, they can get, since Ryan Day has been there, a 50-yard, 70-yard chunk play has been the norm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it would take more than just not being able to stop the run. I think Ohio State would have to have some critical turnovers for Wisconsin to stay close. And you're going to have to pass the ball
right
a little bit. And, I'm not saying you're going to need to pass for 200 yards, but you're going to need to pass in critical down situations to keep them honest. Because I believe Jim Knowles is a good enough DC that he'll make some adjustments to stop that run game. And from a talent standpoint, people get all hyped up about what you don't have. From a talent standpoint, I think Ohio State has enough talent to go up against anybody this coming year. You've got those sophomores from Tua Maloau and going blank on his name right now, the kid from Ohio, the other defensive end. And then you've got Denzel Ward,
Mm-hmm.
those, and the kid in the middle, Malik, he's a great defensive tackle. I think from that standpoint, they've got enough players and talent. It's just, can he come up with a scheme to stop the run and keep Wisconsin off balance? But it's going to be a physical game. If you think it's not going to be physical, then you don't know how the Badgers play.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And you basically said what a lot of Badger fans have said as well. You got to be able to throw the ball to keep Ohio State off balance. So a lot of people agree with that comment right there. Coming up, we're going to talk about Ryan Day. Is it fair to evaluate him as the best coach in the Big Ten, considering where he started? We're going to get into that next. But first, today's show is brought to you by Buildbar. Buildbar remains the #1 source for all your nutritional needs. It's something I use all the time. I've talked about it. My kids raid my Buildbar box. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, 100% pure chocolate. And it's something that's going to give you 17, 18, 19 grams of protein. We all are trying to be a little healthier. We're all trying to be a little better version of ourselves incrementally. And this is a great way nutritionally to get there. Throw it in your backpack, go to the gym. Incredibly easy, simple way to just be a little healthier. And that's really what I'm trying to do in 2022. I know that's what a lot of other people are trying to do as well. At Built Bar, again, they're all about the taste, 100% pure chocolate. Go to built.com, promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off your order at built.com. Thank you again for everybody for just tuning in, giving a little bit of your time. I really appreciate it. And we're going to continue talking about the Badgers, bring Lavisse Smith back on, talk about Ohio State. So, sir, I did a Big Ten coach ranking, right? Top to bottom. I was pretty high on Paul Chryst. I was very high on Ryan Day. But I made an argument that perhaps Jim Harbaugh is the best coach in the Big Ten when you look at their resumes, when you look at the totality of what they've done, where they've been. And I made the argument that it's difficult to evaluate Ryan Day considering he started at Ohio State. I'm curious where you think I'm potentially wrong or right on that. What are your thoughts on Ryan Day?
Well, it sounds like your philosophy is you have to suffer before you're supposed to win.
It helps. I'm a Wisconsin fan. That's born out of experience, man.
Well, first of all, you could almost say that about any coach at Ohio State because they've always been able to get the talent. Ohio has always been a football state. Jim Tressel. I remember being at the University of Minnesota talking to the equipment manager when I heard this who, started leaking who was going to be the head coach, Tressel. And everybody's like, who is this guy? Well, he just comes in and he established the attitude of the team up north is not going to beat us. And he won a national championship. And then, they go out and get Urban Meyer. And the one thing I liked about Urban when he left was that he had this incredible system in place.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, systems are important when you're running a business. And that's how I look at a college football program. It's a major corporation with a lot of employees, which they're turning into today. So my opinion of Ryan Day is that these are the things I judge a coach by. Is he good at the X's and O's, which he is on the offensive side? And I think he's hit a home run with Jim Knowles, just from his experience and background. And does the people that work with him like him? And he checks all those boxes. And I think when you come into a situation and you have a system, he didn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't let his ego get in the way and try to be creative and I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. He kept his recruiting department. He kept the strength staff. In my opinion, his best friend put him in the defensive conundrum that he was in last year when he left after 1 year and went to Boston College. That's my opinion on that. But everybody wants to talk about how great of a DC he was. Well, I'm going to use your comment. How do we know that?
Right.
He had great talent. He was there for 1 year. So, I believe Ryan, and he's he's been there going on 4 years now. And he's won 2 Big Ten championships. I don't know what else how you measure that. He's won.
And his winning percentage in the Big Ten is absurd. It's like 90-something%. It's like a video game number.
Well, let's face it. You have to have talent to win.
Mm-hmm.
And he understands that. People thought that the recruiting was going to fall off when Urban left. It hasn't. It's gotten better.
Right.
So
that's true.
People always talk about the guy who wins. Would he be a good coach here if he didn't have the talent? No. I used to be a Lakers fan because I was a big Magic and Kareem fan.
Sure.
And when slick-haired Pat Riley took over, he won several championships with them. It's the same thing. Everybody's questioning, well, would he have done that with the Phoenix Suns? No, because he didn't have Magic and Kareem.
Right.
So,
by the way, it's so funny. I'm a Suns fan. It's funny that you just went there. But another painful franchise to be a fan of. But no, so your point is dead on, right? That you need talent. And I also love your point of it takes a special type of coach to come in and not change things. To come in and keep things running. I think that's a credit that doesn't get talked about enough. And I've talked about Paul Chryst. When he came in, Dave Aranda was the incumbent defensive coordinator, and he kept him because it made sense. That wasn't his guy, but he was the best guy for the job. And
right.
Credit, that's credit deserving in those spots. I still wonder. Listen, I think Ryan Day's an excellent coach. So at no point and I think you and I have talked about this, do I think Ryan Day is not doing an exemplary job at Ohio State? It just comes back again to if you have the fastest car on the track, right, you do have to weigh that into the calculation a little bit when you're talking about how good of a coach he is. But I think he's excellent. I was splitting hairs a little bit. I had Harbaugh a tiny bit higher based on the resume, but all your points are totally correct. And I'm sure I can't imagine I would talk to very many Buckeye fans. And you tell me if I'm wrong here, where I said you can take Ryan Day or Jim Harbaugh. None of the Buckeye fans are making that trade.
Oh, no.
Yeah, not even close.
He's just a great guy. He's great to the media. He's not a jackhole. And then, the biggest thing he changed when he came in was the mental health piece to his program, which in this day and age of college athletics, where everybody can get on social media and create a firestorm over nothing, I think, being able to for those players, which are kids, and that's what they are kids, can go into an office and share those feelings and talk to someone who cares about them as a person, not only as an athlete. I think that's a great benefit. But going back to what you were saying about not changing the system, that's one thing I credit Barry Alvarez when he became AD. He rubbed some people the wrong way, but hey, name me someone that's not successful that doesn't rub people the wrong way.
Very true.
But he knew what it took to win at Wisconsin. I used to hate him as a coach because he was going to bring those 300-pound linemen into Columbus, and he was going to pound your brains out. And, that's all the Ohio State did was run the ball. So, I hated him.
Right.
But, when he stepped up to be in the AD, he knew what it took to be a successful coach at Wisconsin. And he kept that system.
Yeah.
And that's what you have today. Again, like I said, it just needs you're one quarterback away.
Well, we can't find him because you keep recruiting all the 4- and 5-star guys to Columbus. We got to pull one out of your stable. So this is a great conversation. And like I do with a lot of guests that I really enjoy talking to, I'm going to run out of time before I run out of questions. But I do want to come back after this next word from our advertisers and talk a little bit about USC, UCLA coming in the Big Ten, your thoughts on the Big Ten in general, and just a discussion on where this conference might be going. So I want to do that next after word from these sponsors. All right, we're going to bring Lavisse Smith back on. We're going to talk a little bit about Big Ten, USC, UCLA coming into the conference. What was when that happened, and that was super secret ninja stuff, like there were no leaks anywhere, which was incredible. What was your initial reaction, USC, UCLA coming into the Big Ten?
Wow.
Right. Yep.
I mean, wow. I immediately got on my phone and started checking other sources. Like, this can't be real. Yeah, it's real. And then when you look behind the curtain, you really find out how it happened, and which is great because I think we lost in terms. I'm an Ohio State fan, but I'm also a Big Ten fan.
Right.
And, you get a lot of fans who go, I don't care about that. I'm my team. But I'm a Big Ten guy. And I think we struggled when we lost Jim Delaney. I had the opportunity to work with Jim Delaney, and I thought he was just a tremendous commissioner. I mean, when you look at him putting together the Big Ten network.
For sure.
I worked in broadcasting. I know how difficult and tough that can be. And it's a gold mine. It's a money runner for the Big Ten. And people can talk about how many championships the Southeast Conference have won. It's about the money.
Right.
And Jim Delaney put the Big Ten in that position. And in regards to USC and UCLA, just another big time TV market. And people tend to forget there is a relationship with those two schools specifically because of the Rose Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I used to hate for Ohio State to go out there and play USC in that Rose Bowl because not only did they run the ball, they passed the ball.
Yep.
And it was tough. And from an academic standpoint, USC and UCLA are great academic institutions. I used to call on both of those schools. They've got beautiful campuses. I just hope it doesn't hurt us from a recruiting standpoint because the sun and the fun, strong academics.
Yep.
It's there. I think they are a great addition to the Big Ten. Now, It's going to be interesting to see how they manage the travel. But from a football standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, they're not Midwest schools, but they do have relationships with the Big Ten from the Rose Bowl. I mean, that was the number one game every year before the BCS came about was the Rose Bowl. And most of the times it was Ohio State, USC, UCLA. One year, Wisconsin went out with Barry. You had Purdue that went out with Joe Tiller, who's another great guy who I loved working with. Joe. So I think it's a great move.
Yeah, I agree. I did a quick reaction show after. I thought it was a home run. I mean, just a home run. And by the way, the timing of this happening right before the Big Ten is about to renegotiate its media rights, and now you add USC, you add Los Angeles into that pot. Are you kidding me?
Right.
And I love your take on Delaney, who I don't think gets enough credit. He was forward-thinking, forward-thinking.
Big time.
I grew up, and I'm sure you did as well. I grew up in an era where you couldn't find Big Ten games on TV unless you literally lived in Madison, or you lived in West Lafayette, or you lived in Champaign-Urbana. What he did changed not just the Big Ten, it changed college sports.
Oh, without a doubt. And he doesn't, and it's funny because the networks thought he was crazy. We're not paying that for the Big Ten.
Right.
And, he quietly said, yeah, you will. We'll just wait you out.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he did. And I mean, the money that these Big Ten schools get from athletics is just unbelievable. I mean, I'm in the Chicago area, and Northwestern just built this beautiful facility that overlooks the river. Overlooks Lake Michigan. It looks like a country club.
I've seen pictures. It looks incredible.
Oh, it does. And when you're getting that kind of money, that's why I don't understand Notre Dame, but they're stuck in their ways. They think that independent badge is the hill to die on, which I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to stay independent with the Southeast Conference and in the Big Ten sucking up all the revenue dollars. It's really going to be tough.
Well, they're also sucking up the teams that Notre Dame traditionally plays, right?
Yeah, right.
So now you have USC, which is that traditional Notre Dame rival in the Big Ten. It's going to be harder and harder for them to schedule those marquee games that drive the TV revenue.
Yes.
I want to finish on this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to kind of wrap up on this though. Where do you see the Big Ten going next? If you have any type of guess or any type of thought where you want them to go next.
Oh, wow. Ryan, I don't know. You keep hearing grumblings about Stanford, Notre Dame. I would love to see Notre Dame join the Big Ten.
I would too.
I think it would be great for them. Even Gene Smith, the AD at Ohio State, who's a Notre Dame graduate, he believes they should join the Big Ten. And I think from what he said, there are a lot of alums who think they should join. Stanford, maybe, there's connections there. With Notre Dame and UCLA and USC, and also the president of Ohio State is a graduate of Stanford. So from an academic standpoint, it would be a great fit. I think it would only take a couple of years to get their football program back to the level it needs to be. I don't know if there's any East Coast teams. People are talking about North Carolina. Does it fit in the Big Ten? Does it fit in the Southeast Conference? I think they would struggle in the Southeast Conference, although they have had their share of scandals, like some schools have. Clemson, I think, is a natural fit for the Southeast Conference.
Yeah, I do too.
And then you've got, what do you do with Duke and Virginia? So, I tend not to try to guess because it's all about the dollars. And if you don't have an eye on the tally sheet of what it takes to run a program and how much dollars you need and those type of things, it's hard to guess. In my opinion, USC and UCLA was an easy domino to knock over.
Yeah.
Great programs in the number 2 market. If you want to talk about creating television revenue, wow.
It's also a shot across. I don't think this was the intention. It wasn't the intention, but it's also a bit of a shot across the bow at the SEC. Who came and grabbed,
I think it was.
I mean, they grabbed Texas and Oklahoma, which that's enormous. Yep. And then the SEC dominates the news cycle for a while. Well, for the Big Ten to just go out and take USC, UCLA, and really in a bigger sense, they take California then, right? Like that's what they're taking.
Exactly. Southern California. That's exactly what they got. And, people can cry about let's dump Rutgers and Maryland. And, you always have the Sisters of the Poor in every conference, So Rutgers is a great university. It's going to take a while for them to get the facilities that they need. But when they start cashing those $110 million checks, that will come. Maryland is a great academic institution. They've got good facilities. Probably with this influx of money, they can turn those facilities into great facilities. The jury is still out on their football coach, but, he's good for the DMV. Mm-hmm. So I just think, but I do agree that, in my opinion, the Big Ten had to make a move. Because you got to maintain the revenue stream. And, Gene probably doesn't want to take credit for this, but that whole UCLA USC deal was spearheaded by him. That's my opinion. Mm-hmm. When you look at how weak the commissioner is right now in the Big Ten, plus he didn't have relationships with those two people, where Gene did. Former Cincinnati AD and an AD that tutored under him for 15 years.
Sure, yeah.
So I think it was a great move, natural fit. I can't wait for him to join the conference. It's going to be to me the next big interest is going to be how they manage the schedules and travel.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. Breaking up how they might break up the divisions, how they're going to manage schedules, travel. Everybody, he is Lavisse Smith. I have had an awesome time talking with you, man. And I hope either before or after the Ohio State game, we can do it again.
Oh, Ryan, I appreciate you. I enjoy your show. Keep up the good work. And I hope we keep blocking that quarterback from getting there. So, I don't have to sweat bullets too much when we play you guys.
We're going to hit on one at some point. It'll happen. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to the show. We're just going to wrap it there. This has been an awesome conversation. We're going to have Lavisse back on. Definitely when Ohio State's closer to the end game here, or to the game. Appreciate everyone listening. If you enjoy the show, please leave a like, subscribe, review. As always, on Wisconsin, and we'll talk again later.
Go Bucks.